He did not deserve to be reduced to a headline of Mexican man shot and killed by ICE. He deserved to live a quiet life as Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, a husband, a father, and a job creator for dozens of men who also wanted the American dream.
That's right.
All right, that was the son of Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, and he has been killed, and he was the wrong man. So ICE has done it again. John's got the details.
Exactly, yeah, the wrong man, by all accounts, a good man, and the latest reminder that when you flood America's streets with totally unaccountable, heavily armed, jackbooted thugs, inevitably they begin gunning people down. And so they have. And so he was a 52-year-old native of Mexico who's lived here for 35 years, longer than many of the people watching this video will have been alive themselves. That was the time he spent in the United States. Him and his wife had 3 children. They're all United States citizens, at least until the Supreme Court gives Donald Trump the right to strip it away, I guess. He was a construction business owner who was just months away from obtaining a work permit for legal residency. He was going through the process, the legal process, the way you're supposed to, and he had no previous criminal record, which, the same can't be said for quite a few people serving the United States government right now, including the president. According to his family, the morning that he was murdered, he followed his normal morning routine. He got up at the crack of dawn, brushed his teeth, drank coffee, and then picked up his workers to head to a construction site. In evenings at the home that he built, he would typically sit by the porch with his dog after eating the dinner his wife had made. So as on so many other days, he was on his way to work in a white work van with 3 other individuals, including his younger brother, Victor, when an unmarked vehicle started following him. And imagine if you realized that an unmarked vehicle was for some reason following you. Well, an ICE spokesperson says that officers were trying to pull over a vehicle as part of a targeted enforcement operation, which is, it's one of the standard Orwellian, tropes that they use. They said the driver of the vehicle they tried to pull over, Lorenzo, tried to get away. Investigators say that he rammed into an ICE vehicle and refused to follow orders. They also said he tried to weaponize his vehicle and run over another officer, yet another of their Orwellian terms. Federal officials said the officer opened fire in self-defense. They always say that. During the incident, and Salgado was struck. He was taken to an area hospital where he was later pronounced dead. Now, they have not provided any evidence of any of this, by the way. No images, no video. They weren't wearing body cameras. There's no evidence of damage to their vehicles, supposedly. I imagine if they were gonna try to prove that he'd rammed them, it was that he rammed the front of their car with the side of his, I guess. And according to the men in the car, everything that the ICE has said about this incident was 100% untrue. And so according to these sources, he encountered ICE agents as he picked up the last members of his crew. And then because his van and tools had been stolen in the past, he was obviously cautious about being followed. It's one reason why, if you're in law enforcement, maybe don't routinely drive around in unmarked cars and black bag people without any identification. It's a bad idea for a lot of reasons. When the van accelerated as the light turned green, the unfamiliar vehicle pulled out onto the shoulder, accelerated, and then cut in front of Salgado, who was driving, and tapped on the brakes. That's when he made a U-turn. Again, he has no idea that this is law enforcement. He's under no obligation to just allow himself to be robbed or murdered by random people. At that point, officers turned on their police lights. And as the vehicle continued onto Canal Street, they proceeded slowly because of heavy construction on the roadway. The men said that they were moving at no more than 5 miles per hour, barely crawling. They said that ICE then rammed their vehicles into the van, but that at no point did Salgado use his vehicle to hit law enforcement's cars. At one point, there was an ICE vehicle on each side of the van. An officer then jumped out of the vehicles, ran towards them, yelled stop, and began shooting wildly into the side of the van, hitting Salgado in the abdomen. His brother said he felt the force of the firearm as the agent pointed his gun towards his brother. These agents, by the way, were unmarked and unidentifiable. So the cars they had police lights, which obviously you can't just buy on Amazon. Everybody should have known exactly how to respond to this. And according to his son, he said, had my father seen an emblem of ICE or an emblem that says anything about a law enforcement agency, my father would have complied, he would have stopped. And I guess Ronaldo assumes that then the outcome might have been different. I don't believe that at all. I mean, why did they jump out of their car and immediately begin firing into a car that was penned in on both sides? I mean, why did they do literally any of the things that they chose to do? And as you sort of acknowledged, Cenk, none of the people that they're targeted enforcement looking for were even in the car. They just randomly stopped a random car, racially profiling, although the Supreme Court says that's totally legal. You can just racially profile people if you want to. And then they just casually murdered one of them, I guess, because they didn't immediately comply. There's more details, but what do you think?
Yeah, so look, first of all, even before I saw the facts, I know the context and the history of ICE under this administration, and almost nothing they said has been true. And so, you remember after Alex Preddy, some in the administration came out and said that he was a terrorist. And then you saw the video and he was protecting a woman, didn't do anything wrong. They had already taken his weapon from him, and then 6 thugs shot and killed him. And same thing with Renee Good. Oh my God, I was fearing for my life. Then you see the car's nowhere near the guy. She's already made the turn, and he shoots her from the side and murders her. So now they tell us, oh yeah, it was the wrong guy, but our lives were in danger after we cut him off with our car. So it doesn't look. Of course they're lying, of course. But John, what's sad about it is not only like all of this ICE stuff to scare the living crap out of not just immigrants, but all Latinos, all Americans, try to divide us. But there's 2 other layers to it. One is to try to get everyone used to the surveillance state, and I would argue used to extreme violence from our government towards the people that live here. And they want to get you to get used to it and think it's normal. Oh yeah, the government sends in mass thugs and every once in a while they murder someone in the streets, and that's normal. No, that's not normal. That's not what America is. So that is deeply, deeply disturbing. And then the surveillance state doesn't just come for the left, the right, immigrants, non-immigrants. It comes for everyone. The surveillance state is about power and how the wealthy and the powerful want to maintain and add to their wealth and power. And they don't give a damn if you're on the right or the left, Republican or not, or Democrat. So if you're on the right, and there are some that just keep excusing this stuff, it's absurd. It's absurd. Why would you want innocent people to die? Like, even if you're vicious enough to say, okay, let's do mass deportations, and I don't care if some criminal or whatever gets killed along the way, you should care, that's terrible. But this is an innocent guy. So like, and is anyone really so dim that they think, oh no, I believe the government. I believe that all of those guys were in mortal danger, and if they didn't kill this guy, they probably all would have been killed by him. Come on, nobody believes that. So don't get used to this stuff. This is totalitarian maneuvers. And so we have to push back as aggressively as we can within the bounds of politics and rhetoric.
Yeah, it's absolutely grotesque. I mean, one of the issues in terms of how it will be interpreted is, first of all, Fox News won't even talk about it. All of this negative stuff, if you're in the right wing, you'll be in a bubble where you probably won't even hear about this story. And if you do, you won't think of him as an innocent person. First of all, you probably barely think of him as a person because of his racial identity. You interpret everything 100% through identity. And also, he's not innocent, he is guilty of being a Mexican national. And that is enough for them. And then meanwhile, I, as a person who I'm not afflicted by that particular sort of brain damage. I think about how all of this insane mass deportation nonsense, the hundreds of billions of dollars being spent, the people being gunned down in the streets, is to make us safer, make our streets safer, because they have to get the worst of the worst off the streets. And meanwhile, in this interaction, that gentleman went 35 years without committing a single crime. Meanwhile, those ICE officers couldn't go 3.5 seconds without murdering someone once they interacted with them. Who was actually making America less safe? The white van with the day laborers, the skilled home constructors, or the guys just waiting to plug someone in the belly if they get a chance and if they feel like they'll be protected? Not feel if they'll be protected, know that they'll be protected, because they will be protected. We've got Mark Wayne Mullen, one of the dumbest meatheads in America. He'll be in charge of the investigation, which the family's pushing for, and they should. And I hope against hope, and I don't believe that they will, that they get that investigation. But I also know that it's been 6 months since Renee Good was shot in the face, and that guy's still free. And it's been about 6 months since Alex Preddy was murdered. And Jake, here's an interesting trivia question for you. Who murdered Alex Preddy?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know.
It's been 6 months. Nobody knows who murdered Alex Preddy. Nobody knows a single fact about the killing of Renee Good or Alex Preddy that they didn't know a week after it happened.
Yeah, look, this is supposed to be our government. We're supposed to have a justice system. It's supposed to be fair. If you want it to be unfair, be careful what you wish for. Because again, the people who rig things to make them unfair are not Republicans or Democrats. They're not on the right or the left. They're at the very top. And they rig the rules for their own benefit and against the rest of us. So that is a perilous, perilous way to go. Guys, does this look like America to you? I mean, to me, when I was growing up here, and I'm a little bit older, in the 1980s, we used to see masked guys with heavy, weapons, etc., marching in the streets of what we used to call banana republics. These run by tin pot dictators, and now it's here in America, and we're the slowly boiling frog. And I don't want you to get used to any of this. Look, the last thing for me, John, is that on top of all of the things that are going wrong here in the case of immigration, the case of taking away our rights, the surveillance state, and getting us used to all of this, is the loss of the value of life. Yeah. So in the old days, when anybody was killed, it was a big deal. Like, so for example, you know how many people were killed at the shootout at the OK Corral? And that was gigantic news, and we still know it today. It happened in the 1880s, right? And we still know it's in our lexicon. It's a thing that we're all familiar with because it was such a traumatic event back then for America. 3 people were killed. And they thought that was the most amazing, horrific thing that ever happened. Now we have mass shootings where, dozens of people get killed, and we got used to it. Our kids are slaughtered in their schools, we got used to it. And now our own government is shooting people in the streets and then not letting us know who shot them, who killed them. We have no idea if they're gonna come to justice. And 3 people have already been killed. Well, no, more than 3, but these last 3 have been so outrageous. This, Renee Good and Alex Preddy. And I mean, we just can't get used to this, John. I know, because they're degrading the most important thing of all, which is the value of life. And if you're a Republican or a Democrat, that's a core thing we should all agree on.
Yeah, and super fast, I apologize for going on, but I do think it's important. They backed off of some of the more public, invasions of U.S. cities after Renee Good and Alex Preddy. They even seemed to realize, oh, this is actually playing poorly. People are not actually getting off on the violence, in our city streets like we thought they would, which was good. I really hope that people get just as fired up and enraged about Lorenzo's death, and I fear that they will not. For one thing, he's a Mexican national. For another, he's not white. Like for some people, maybe it's a little bit easier. Renee Good's, mom, and it's on video. Alex Preddy's a nurse. I really hope that people are consistent. They need to flood the streets. I know there have been protests, like there were 1,000 people out last night, I think it was. And so I really hope that they do, because there should be as much national outrage about this shooting as there was there.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.